Good afternoon, class. This is my screencast-o-matic oral presentation of my paper, which discusses the central questions, findings, and sources that I use throughout my paper. So the topic of my paper is gerrymandering in schools that I researched. I go over 4 different topics throughout the paper that I'm going to go through this presentation. So the first topic is the brief history of gerrymandering, which begins with Eldridge Gerry, who was the governor of Massachusetts in 1812. He signed into law a districting plan that was designed to benefit his political party and ultimately shaped the county to resemble the shape of a salamander. Here's a over-personified example of what it looked like. This is obviously propaganda, but looked like this in a way. This is from 1812 or 1813, I believe it was made in the Boston Gazette. And then so to continue, there's a lot of history from 1812 to 1965 that goes into limiting minority rights and limiting minority representation in government. And then in 1965 Voting Rights Act, which created affirmative gerrymandering, which was supposed to put minority politicians into government. But today, majority parties and state legislations continue to set district boundaries and aims to gain power and limit minority power. Then my second topic goes into gerrymandering in schools. So school attendance zones have been gerrymandered in much the equivalent fashion as these political parties have been for centuries in the United States. One look at the school attendance zones in this light of racial gerrymandering becomes clear why these lines are drawn the way they are. I can show you some that I've researched. So here is Omaha, Milwaukee, and Houston. You can tell that the demographics of school attendance in zones, the darker it is, the percentage of Hispanics and blacks. Definitely a lot of segregation, and into the districts, a lot of white communities isolated from these minority populations. And then you can even go into, here's even more, Atlanta, Salt Lake, Sacramento, Cincinnati, DC, East Baton Rouge, and then I even went into San Diego County, which is just as much the same. And you can tell it's less significant, but it's still heavily concentrated and separated the majority population in here, where you have Johnson School District, Porter School District, Baker School District, all with like 94, 91. Well, then you go up to over here, La Jolla School District has 9%, or Spreckles School District 8%. Definitely a lot of gerrymandering and attendance zoning districting going on there. And then, so I continue. Groups with political clout who are mainly wealthier, wider communities have pushed policies that help white families live in heavily white areas and attend heavily white schools that are more funded, not only by the parents but by the districts as well. And this ultimately limits the opportunities for minorities in our school districts, and the percentages of blacks in the South who attend schools that are at least 50% white have decreased to 23%, which is the same level it was in 1965, I believe. So we are reverting back to segregation in our schools. And then continue on with affirmative gerrymandering, so how to fix it and how to integrate our schools and focus on integration in our schools. So affirmative gerrymandering attendance zones is to increase the equity and diversity in both feasible and legally defensible. So while school leaders cannot actually change where students live, obviously, they have the power to adjust school boundaries to create educational communities that highlight the diversity of school districts. So redrawing it so that schools have more diversity in their classrooms, so that there's no good school or bad school in their communities, and that gradually redrawing the lines, all students or all populations in this community kind of split between 50-50 going to each school. Both schools will get the benefits of having multicultural education and diversity inside their classes instead of just having the good white school or the bad minority school where all the minorities go to and there's only a few white kids, It's shifting that and making it more balanced, obviously. And then we go into the need to publicize the positive implications of integration in our schools. So let's go to integration examples. So I talk about Louisville, Jefferson County, which is one of the most integrated school districts throughout the nation. In 2011, 89% of parents see diversity in schools as desirable in that county. All students both benefit. Minorities obviously benefit from better schooling, class offerings, and extended curriculum and additional opportunities, obviously. While white students also gain from integration in a multitude of ways, including the development of critical thinking and increased access to higher education. Obviously, increased diversity and understanding of different cultures and populations. And one quote that I really liked that I used in the essay was from Orfield. He discusses how there's one thing you can't learn in a segregated school as a minority. You can't learn to operate within an integrated society. The same is true for whites who grow up attending all white schools. When they get around people of other races, they're not comfortable and they're not really effective, which is a beautiful quote. And especially in a society that's so divided today, it's so important that we educate our youth to not only understand but be able to work with different cultures and be multicultural. It's super, super important. And if we continue on this tread towards segregation, our nation's only going to get more and more divided. And we do not need that, especially today. So that is the end of my screencast-o-matic presentation. Thank you for listening.